A quiet suburban street in the late 1980s. Kids riding bikes until the streetlights turn on. No smartphones, no constant check-ins, no one tracking their location. Many of those kids are adults now. And if you've ever noticed that people from Generation X seem unusually independent, calm in chaos, and sometimes emotionally reserved, there's a psychological reason for that. Picture a child walking home from school with a house key around their neck. They open the door, step inside, and the house is quiet. No parents yet, no supervision. This became a normal afternoon for many Gen X kids. Psychologists sometimes call them latchkey children. And growing up like this quietly shapes how someone experiences responsibility. When a child learns early that they must handle things alone, they begin solving problems quietly. They figure out dinner, homework, small worries that no adult sees. Over time, independence stops being a skill and slowly becomes an identity. This is why many Gen X adults appear extremely self-reliant. They rarely panic during uncertainty. They adapt quickly when situations change. But underneath that calm reaction is something deeper, a lifetime of learning that depending on yourself is the safest option. You might notice another pattern. Many people from this generation don't talk openly about emotions, not because they don't feel deeply, but because emotional conversations simply weren't common in their environment growing up. Feelings were often handled quietly or privately. And here's where it gets interesting. People sometimes assume Gen X is emotionally distant, but the real reason isn't coldness, it's self-protection. When emotional support isn't always available during childhood, people learn to regulate those emotions on their own. This creates adults who are incredibly adaptable. Generation X grew up in a world that shifted dramatically. Analog childhood, digital adulthood. They remember life before the internet and learned new systems as technology transformed everything. That constant adjustment builds psychological flexibility. Another subtle behavior appears in many Gen X personalities. They tend to observe more than they perform. While younger generations grew up sharing every moment online, Gen X developed in a quieter social environment. So their instinct often becomes watching, analyzing, understanding first. This is why many of them value authenticity over attention. They're less interested in being seen constantly, and more interested in real conversations and real experiences, not because they reject modern culture, but because their identity formed before constant visibility became normal. So when you look at the psychology of Generation X, you begin to see a pattern. Independence that started in quiet homes, emotional privacy shaped by a different cultural era, and resilience built between two very different worlds. It was never random. It was a generation learning to grow up in between everything. And once you see that pattern, you start to understand the people who carry it.